Zucchinis were really good, really good. Eggplants look good. And the peppers, I'm picking peppers every day now.
Peppers like the heat.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, but I find I have to pick them green because they let them go red, they mush up. Okay, I know somebody likes green peppers. I like green peppers.
All right. So let's continue along in our different questions that we have. We saw yesterday that if a person wants to borrow money but is only prepared to pay back in small installments, you're not mechuyev to, you have no obligation to accommodate his request if it's inconvenient for you. Okay. Next. She'ela mi shezakuk lahalva'a ve'en lo ke'et ma'ot mezumanim biyado. A person who requires a loan, he has no liquidity. האם יש חיוב עליו ללוות מאחרים כדי להלוות לזה, או אינו חייב ללוות מאחרים? Oh, okay. So here's the shaila. A guy comes to me for a loan. I want to fulfill the mitzvah of lending him money, but I don't have liquidity. Do I have an obligation to borrow from others to fulfill the mitzvah of loaning to him? That's an interesting question.
I've heard about it.
You have?
No, also for the lawyers and Ponzi schemes and stuff like that.
Oh, okay, so the answer is Eino mechuyev b'mitzvahs halva'a ela kisheyesh lo mizumanim biyado. The mitzvah, you only have this mitzvah of lending others money when you yourself have liquidity. Aval kishein lo mos biyado eino chayev lilvos me'acherim ula'alvos lechaver. There's absolutely no obligation. You should not feel at all, a sense of duty to borrow money from other people in order to make a loan. I actually, seriously, there's a guy that I'm thinking of. If I asked him to borrow money and he didn't have it, he'd probably borrow money from other people to lend me money. He's that kind of guy. There are people who feel that sense of like, I have to do this, And so that's why this halacha was written. It wasn't written for me because I would know that automatically. But here's the thing. Let's say I do have liquidity, but it's in other people's possession. And I've been holding off collecting what's owed to me. So if you have the ability to collect what's owed to you in order to lend it to other people, then tzarich litroach litolet hapikadon lahalvot lefisha pikadon b'chol makom sheyeshno birshuto omeid. He says, here's the thing. Let's say you've given someone cash for safekeeping, and it's just that it's a tircha for you to have to ask them to relinquish the cash that you have locked up in their vault. Then you do have a mitzvah of halva. There's the fact that it may be somewhat inconvenient for you to ask them to open up the vault and give you the money does not really mitigate your mitzvah of lending others money. You can't really sort of just say, well, it's inconvenient right now. Inconvenience is not an excuse for fulfilling the mitzvah.
So does that mean that you need to if somebody asks you for a loan, you need to give it to them almost at that time?
No,
Well,
you can arrange.
To get the cash, why not say come back tomorrow and I'll have it for you?
Yeah, so it could be inconvenient for other reasons, not just a question of time. It could be inconvenient because you had just opened an account with this.
It's not time bound one.
Right. You do have a right to tell a person that's going to take me a week to put all the funds together, that you're allowed to do. Okay, shir hachiv b'mitzvahs halva. How much? Sheila mahu hashir shechiv hator b'mitzvahs halva yishlareu. Is there any amount that I'm obligated to lend someone? Shuva shir halva yishlareu mitzvah zu tluya l'chol echad kefi hasagat yado. All depends on what you can afford. Whatever you can do to help your friend, you should do within reason. Laman harchivlo lahakel me'alav en chaso, to help alleviate his financial woes. Bein begodel hasikum ubein ba'orech hazman. And there is no fixed amount, and there is no fixed amount of time. Shaharei kasuv de machsaro asher yechsarlo, because the Torah's verbiage is just give him what he's lacking, and whatever he needs. Vafilu admei pa'amim chayv lachzor lahalvoslo. And I think this is quoting from the Chafetz Chaim, that even if you have to relend him, I'm sorry, it's from the Sefer HaChinuch. Even if you have to, and the Ahavas Chesed, the Chafetz Chaim, even if you have to lend him again 100 times. In other words, there's no like, you don't max out after having loaned him money 1 or 2 times. If he continually needs the loan, there's a mitzvah to continue lending him money.
Is that contingent on him paying it back each time? Or just keep lending him more and more?
Yeah, no, it's contingent upon him paying you back, right? In other words, if he's got bad credit, and you're not supposed to go into the hole further and further, right?
What
So-
about he's using the money for buying alcohol, isn't alcohol? He's using money for buying alcohol.
Yeah, so yeah.
How does that interest?
I think that would be don't help someone self-destruct. Yeah, you don't want to do that either.
So Rabbi, like I have this sort of in business, let's have some Jewish clients, so they're always behind the 8 ball, so they're always owing me money, they're paying me, but they're owing me money again, they're owing, so I'm never really getting the money from them, because it's just perpetuating, it's just like I give, I sell them something,
You sell to
whatever.
them on credit.
Yeah, I'm selling credit, they're giving back, then they're it's like they're always owing me, there's always a balance that they're owing me.
Yeah.
So I'm never
But
really
at least,
collecting the whole balance.
but at least they're a reliable customer, and they are paying you. It's just they're paying you slowly, right? Isn't
Yeah.
that? I mean, otherwise you wouldn't do business with them.
I guess so, yeah, but it's like you never get the balance down to
Zero.
yeah.
Some people have that as a business model. There's some people who, like, in principle, believe, I don't want to pay off all my debts. In other words, I'd rather be liquid and just pay off people the minimum that I can, especially if they're not charging the interest.
Merchants.
Yeah, what?
Find a merchant.
They do that?
Right.
I don't know the industry.
I don't
Okay.
know, people who owe money for as long as I know.
Right.
That's what the big chains do, Walmart and Costco, they pay 120 in 90 days, and they send to you in cash. And actually they are sitting on the money, that's the business model that they have.
Right.
They make money with
They make money off of the holding on to the money. Yeah. Yeah. All right.
Yeah, but like you use the money, he pays you back to buy more inventory, right?
Yeah.
So we're turning over the inventory.
In the end, you're making money. It's just what
Well, unless there's 6 months between each order that they buy stuff from you. So if they don't pay you for 6 months, and then they pay you on the 6th month and order something on the 7th month, right, or vice versa as they go to order, then then you'll be in your need.
Yeah. Now, he quotes in the footnote from Sefer Abbas Chesed from the Chafetz Chaim, She'ein lilmod mitzvahs halva, she'ein lilmod mitzvahs halva mitzvahs tzedakah. You cannot infer the halachas of loaning from the halachas of tzedakah in this respect. The Shama Shir l'chol hayoser u'chomesh min achasav, he says, because when it comes to the laws of tzedakah, you're not supposed to give more than 20% of your current holdings. B'sham hu nosin l'chalutin, ma she'en kein b'halva b'lo amaman b'chazar le'hefech gam kein. He says with the mitzvah of loans, you can lend more than 1/5 of your value because you're getting the money back. Whereas with tzedakah, you're giving away the money. So when giving away the money, the rabbi said, don't give more than 1/5 of your assets. But with loans, you could give more than 1/5, as long as you know that you've protected yourself with, let's say, collateral and things like that. He says, Ein svar lomar shekol mamonu shehem la'es ata betelos etzlo. T'chayiv haTorah lechalek osam legamilos chasadim. And he says, but it also goes the other way. There's no logic in suggesting that any money that you have that's currently liquid and is not doing anything, you have an obligation to do chesed with. Like, what if some emergency need comes up and you want to have some security, you want to have some padding in the bank? You're not obligated to give away. Let's say a guy's got $20,000 in the bank, but he says, like, I don't want to, just because I have it doesn't mean I have to give it all away for chesed projects, even if they're loans, because we all should have some liquidity for a rainy day, right? There's even a Gemara that says from Rabbi Yitzchak that a person should try to be as liquid as possible. That's what it means to say his money should be in his pocket. Shenemar v'tzarta kesef biyadcha. As the Torah says, you shall wrap the money in your hands. In other words, the Torah advocates liquidity. Upirish Rashi matzah biyado. He says you should have, Rashi explains, you should have cash ready in hand. Lo yafkidenu la'acher b'makom acher. He says it's not advisable to lock your money up in some faraway place because she'im tizdamin lo schara lischar yehi mezumin lo. He says because there may be some kind of business or purchase enterprise that comes your way and you want to be able to take advantage of it. V'lachein kasav mistaver detoli hamitzvah l'chol echad kefi hasagas yado yehu yansham. And therefore, it all depends upon what you can afford. If a person's got $500,000 in the bank and he's really liquid, then there's nothing wrong with taking half of that and doing chesed with it, as long as you know you'll see a return on it. So let's see. Okay, so all right.
The return you mean the money, not
Yeah, that you get your money back. That you get your money back. I'm trying to think if there are any chesed opportunities that could see actually a return, not just the principal, but also interest, also profiting. I mean, the profit itself, of course, is the spiritual profit that you get. You give out $100,000, you get $100,000 back, plus you get the mitzvah. So it's a pretty good investment when you think about it that way. But I'm just trying to think if there's any situation.
Would an Israeli bond qualify?
Yeah, an Israel bond would qualify because you're supporting the state of Israel. I'm sure they use a heter iska, the bonds office. Let's see, what else? Sometimes, let's say, a yeshiva may ask you, will you buy bonds in our building, like be a stakeholder in our building, because we want to build something in order to sell it, because, sure. Let's say a Jewish organization is building an apartment building because they want to be able to have it usable in perpetuity for revenue making. And they need partners. They need people who will help them invest to be able to put up the building. So you say, okay, I'll be one of the investors. And as you sell off the apartments or you rent out the apartments, I'll get regular returns. You're doing a chesed, plus you're making money off of it. So sure, there's nothing wrong with that.
What about if you gave somebody an interest-free loan, so they just start a business? Would that fall into chesed or not?
Sure. Well, it depends how you structure it. Are you a partner in their business?
Percentage of profit.
You're getting a percentage of the profits.
If they
It's
make
still potentially a chesed, but then it's no longer a loan. You're not lending them the money. You're investing. You're one of their investors. A lot of times being an investor in a business is a chesed at the same time. I know a lot of wealthy people who don't need to make money anymore. But if you'll ask a private person, will go over to them and say, I want you to invest in my business. I think it's a good idea. And the guy's really not interested, but he does it as a chesed for the other person. So there are plenty of instances like that. Okay. All right, let us go on. Okay. So this principle of lend him money even 100 times is basically there's a guy who is he always overextends himself, but he's also conscientious enough to pay back his loans. So he becomes like a revolving door, and you're his credit. So he every month he's short $1,000 by the end of the month because he overextends, but then he makes it somehow manages to make it back. Even if every month he comes to you and asks for another loan, as long as you know that he's good for it, then you should continue lending it to him if you have the means. Okay, that's the idea of even 100 times. Okay, next. Dechiyat shata piraon machmas tirda. So the question is pushing off the repayment of the loan. Im higiya zman hapiraon ubo hamal v'lo v'legabos ischova. So the terms of the loan have matured. It's now time to pay it back. And the creditor comes to the debtor and says, I'm here to collect what you owe me. Ha'im yachal haloi v'lichbosh mamon chavero v'lomer lo lech v'shuv v'machar etein lecha eschovecha. Does the borrower have the right to say to the lender, I'm sorry, I'm busy today, come back tomorrow, which happens unfortunately. Yeah, tshuva, yeah, that doesn't work anymore, right? So tshuva, im higiya zman hapiraon v'yesh lelo v'imo mos la'achzer es ha'halva. If the date has matured and the debtor has the money, okay, asur lichbosh mamon chavero v'lomer lo lech v'shuv v'machar eiten lecha es chovecha. It is asur al pi halacha for the debtor to say, look, do me a favor, I'm busy right now. Come back tomorrow and I'll have your money. It's asur to do that. Even doing it by one day is asur. V'hakovesh mamon b'chazaka ve'enu machziro kishenitva v'hamal ve'eni yachol lahotzio mipnei shalo v'hu adam olim v'kasha. If a person withholds the payment of a debt, and he can do so because he's a person who knows how to manipulate the law and is powerful and is threatening. If a person does that and just refuses to pay back the loan when it's due, over al mashakasuf b'torah lo ta'ashok et reacha, violates the Torah's commandment, do not oppress your fellow. Do not oppress your fellow goes both ways, but certainly it goes to the extent of not paying back your debts. V'nira she'im haloiva yesh imo hamos shel hamalva. V'docho torak misiba shu tarud achshav. It says it would seem that if the reason why the lova is asking him to come back tomorrow is just because he's busy, v'lo mishum shehu rotza lichbosh et mamon chavero biyado, and it's not because he means to be mean to the guy and refuse to pay him. He has every intention of paying him, but right now he's in the middle of a very important conference or a very important meeting. Rak otasha ein lo panai, and he doesn't have time at this moment that the guy comes to pay it back. Muter lomer lo lamal v'lech v'shuv machar. It would be permitted in that situation to say to the lender, I'm really sorry, I don't have the ability to come pay you back today. Would it be okay if I come by tomorrow? Now, there are times when that's not acceptable. Let's say the lender says, I really need the money today. I was counting on getting it because I have my own debts that are due, and I need that liquidity in order to pay back my obligations. Or I have a business opportunity that's only available today, and I was counting on that money to be able to take advantage of that special opportunity. If you wait until tomorrow, that opportunity will be lost, or it will cost me much more money. So you're really doing me harm. So this is a very subjective halacha, and you'd have to know how to apply it in different situations. Okay. Oh, so now the next packet we're up to now, number 11. Just give me 1 second.
But if you made an arrangement with, when you lent the money to the borrower, that you were gonna collect it on such and such a day, or you agreed that that was the day it's gonna collect it,
Right.
Then obviously that arrangement should be met, right?
It should be met, but there are legitimate circumstances where you could say to the guy, right. In other words, you have to fulfill your obligations, but you may not be in violation of lo ta'ashoket re'acha, do not oppress your fellow. You may be in violation of Motzah sifasecha tishmar ve'asisa, that which comes out of your mouth you have to fulfill. There may be like a positive commandment you're in violation of for not fulfilling your obligations when you're supposed to fulfill those obligations, right? But okay, the next question is kafias based in esalova, right? When can the based in coerce the borrower? She'ela mishalova v'higia zman hapiraon ve'en lo mima l'shalem. The debt has matured. The borrower doesn't have the cash. Hayim based adin kofen oso she'elech lasos eze malacha kedei lifroa es chovo. Can the based in coerce this guy to get a job to work off the debt? Oh, kol she'en lo ein based in kofen oso alzeh. Or if the guy says, I got nothing, does the Beis Din have any sway over him? In other words, the halacha really is that you're not allowed to oppress someone who doesn't have the money to pay back. So what kind of leverage do we have over a guy who is not working, is not making any effort to become liquid so he can pay back the debt? That's essentially the question. So tshuva, mishalova v'higiyazman hapiraon v'hamal v'tovei salova beveistin. So if a person borrowed money, the time to pay back the debt has arrived, and the lender is saying it's time to pay up. The guy doesn't acknowledge him, so he takes him to Beis Din, and he goes to Beis Din and he says, this guy's not paying back what he owes. And there's clear evidence of the loan. It was all put down in paper. So it's not like he's contesting the loan. He just says, I can't do it right now. So imesh l'lova mimal l'shalem, v'rak dochet hatashlum shemagia l'malva. So first of all, we have to see, what assets does this fellow have? He may not have liquid assets, but he may have collateral items that can be used to collect. Okay? Based in machrichan oso l'shalem. So Beis Din can coerce this person to take whatever items that he has, that he owns, and dissolve them so that they can be used for payment of the loan. In other words, the Beis Din does have the power to coerce him to do that. We can compel this person legally to create liquidity so that he can pay back the debt. But let's say he doesn't have anything. Okay, he doesn't have anything that can be converted to cash. The Beis Din does not have jurisdiction to compel him to get a job, to compel him to hire himself out to pay back the loan. And even if that was conditioned in the loan documents, in other words, let's say I suspect this guy not paying back, and in the loan documents it says, in the event that you're not liquid on the date of the maturity of the loan, you commit that you will do with whatever is in your power to acquire funds to pay me back, included but not limited to getting a job. Could you conceive of that in a?
Yeah, it's against public policy to enforce personal service contracts. So employer employment and stuff like that, you can't enforce, and you can't enforce deals like that either. You can't force somebody to work.
Can't force somebody to work.
No.
Yeah. So the Beis Din cannot compel this guy, even if it is written in a contract. Gam hamal ve'ena yachol lasos din la'atzmo la'asro the lender cannot take the law into his own hands to imprison the guy until he pays it back. Below lihishtabe bo, nor can he compel him to work for him. Below legavos chovo shelo birtzono v'yidiyasu shel haloida. And furthermore, you can't collect the loan without the consent or the knowledge of the borrower. In other words, let's say I see you've got your baseball card collection. I'll take that. And the guy says, no, I'm not prepared to do that. You can take me to Beis Din. Beis Din can compel me to liquidate my my baseball card collection, but you can't just come into my house and take my baseball cards. The Yesh Misha Omer shebimikra v'higia zman hapiraon v'zeh eino rotze leparo. There is an opinion that says that in an instance where the loan has matured and the guy is just not paying back, shliach beis din yachol lihikanes lebeis lebayis lemashchana. Then a ward or a sheriff or a bailiff of the court can go forcefully into his home and seize his assets.
But the base didn't, why couldn't you employ the guy to be a gardener for you or something of that nature, like do something around here?
He doesn't want to. He doesn't want to.
You can't force it.
Can't force him. Can't force him.
So I had
Also, not long ago, there was debtor's prison, right, in England here too, where if you, it's like in Les Mis, right, you steal some bread or you're a debtor, you go to prison. You can't pay it back.
But that's not true today anymore.
Not today, it's all,
The dead is,
Oh, really?
dead is prison's gone.
it's gone, it's illegal.
It's too bad because a great musical came from that.
And it's just, also, didn't we sell ourselves as slaves if we couldn't be?
Yes, yes. You sold yourself into slavery, but there's no more. No more. That doesn't
I
exist.
had a situation, I do have a situation like my first cousin, Baba Chassidim, had a beautiful grocery store in Borough Park. And
Yeah, beautiful what?
grocery store in Borough Park.
Okay.
And what happened was that, people, dire straits and people have large families and this line of credit, sure, buy this, buy that, I'll keep track. But meantime, people were not paying or could not pay. So eventually, after a couple of years, that people couldn't do anything. And he had to close down the store
Oh, wow.
because he lost so much money.
Because he was extending credit to
Yeah,
people.
because he felt sorry that they had no food, they had no money, no nothing. So he just like a special sweet man, he just kept on giving it
Yeah.
to him until basically he had to declare bankruptcy. And,
Right, right. See, that's what we would call, he's a sometimes being compassionate is a liability. And that's a perfect example. We would not say that that person is a tzaddik, even though he was driven by compassion. A tzaddik is a person who does what's good for everybody, and including himself. So you have to be careful when you extend yourself and do chesed. You should not do it in such a way that you'll end up with absolute failure. So obviously, he's a sweetheart of a guy, and you'd want him as a friend, but he ended up helping people in the short term, but in the long term, he could have had an institution that could have actually benefited people for a longer period of time if he had been more responsible financially. Right.
sad situation.
It is a sad situation. I hope he gets financial advice next time. He should speak to you.
Well, he's doing now, which I don't understand, he's doing that, but he'd use the word loan sharking. Like he works for a Jewish company that gives out loans. So,
Yeah.
he's doing all right, actually.
Good.
I don't understand, like, I don't understand, like, that's a big thing now in the Jewish community. I hear in the States.
Financing.
Yeah, financing, it's a big thing.
Right. So what they do a heteriska, I guess.
I don't ask questions, but it's a very financial company. So I don't know how it's working, but he's doing it not bad. But it's not bad.
All right.
Yes.
Look, every few years there's a financial, you read a headline, but you hope that everyone's on the up and up, Today, I think there's a lot of more stability in the very, very religious community because people have become more financially savvy and they understand how to make money. There's, clear formulas on how to do that. Okay, we'll hold it here for today. Have a great day, everybody.